No. There's nothing else to roleplay as in my tabletop games. I've been everything imaginable. A dwarf, a halfling, an elf, a sexy elf.
Hey, Jack.
What?
Jack.
What is it, vampire cop?
I know you're looking to put weird little monsters into your game. Well, look no further. Battlezoo Ancestries Living Legends has 14 unique ancestries for your Pathfinder 2E or D&D 5th edition games.
Radical!
Like Swarmblood, a creature made of hundreds of other little creatures. Gargoyles, where you can disguise as an ordinary statue, but also become a warrior of the night.
Look at them all. Angels, devils, sphinxes, evil eyes. I love them and I will die for them.
And if you really want to go full sicko mode, you can be a fusion and play as an ancestry that combines multiple characters in one, like a chimera, two-headed giant, or even a hydra. You could either share this character with other players or control it all by yourself.
I could have the power of both a low-level internet personality
and a low-budget, sexy horror action movie? Visit legends.rollforcombat.com
to get Battlezoo Ancestries Living Legends, which includes in-depth information about each creature's culture, society, and history. You also get hundreds of digital tokens and illustrations that work with any VTT. Go get your hands on all these little freaks today.
Hey, can I join you? Sure, we can be a chimera now.
No!
And we're live.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Roll for Combat Live. Today's topic is why D&D will stay 5th edition forever.
Forever and ever. Some people have accurately said that we've touched on this before, but
we have.
I figured I'll talk about it. And today's kind of a catch-up day. Couldn't get really a guest. And we came back from Gamma, and there's a 99% chance our Kickstarter will launch next week. I won't get into why.
We may or may not.
Well,
but probably will.
It's 99% chance. Basically, there's just a lot going on. There's just a lot. And then today, I'm really tired.
I just want to tell everyone, by the way, I was at Gamma. Every time Steven does one of these things after he's at a convention, he'll talk about all the stuff that he did. And you're always left to think, as the viewer or as me, it'd be like, I know that generally what Steven is saying happened, but he has this way of speaking that is like naturally kind of like builds things up to be really exciting and possibly bombastic is a great word for that. And you think like, is it exaggerating in my head based on what he was saying? Did he really talk to these people and they said those kind of things like he's saying in these episodes? But I can now officially tell you that as far as I can see, he was not making over-the-top bombastic statements. Like when he says, I talked to this person, I later sometimes had like that person come to the booth and like continue the conversation that Steven said was happening and was clear that he had done so. So retroactively, if you heard any of his reports about cons that are like, is this Steven being bombastic or is that just straight shooting about what happened at the con? I think we can conclude that it was probably a straight shooting.
Wow. That's nice. So Mark has now officially confirmed that I tell the truth.
You always tell the truth, but you sometimes do it a little bit bombastically.
Because, I mean, you were there. I talked to... Because at the booth... This is how it worked out. It actually worked very well. Is that Mark manned the booth. Like, he 100% manned the booth. I manned the booth like 60% of the time. Because I just walk around talking to everyone and just... wheeling and dealing, and it's so funny because everyone else has meetings, like endless meetings, and I only had one meeting the whole con because I don't like meetings because I don't know where I'm going to be or what I'm going to be doing. I'm like an agent of chaos. I just literally walk around the convention and just talk to everyone, and it's just... I mean, the downside is I don't get to see everyone. I actually did miss a couple of people because I didn't set up actual meetings with them. But I saw mostly everyone I wanted to see, so it wasn't an issue. But yeah, I just walk around and just find people and just go up to them and start talking. And I don't know. It's just the way. I wish Derek was on. He saw it too. He saw it at Gen Con, and he was also War Professor Dungeon Master. They've seen it. They see the way I work. I'm kind of just. I don't know, man. It's just the way I am. I don't know. I just like to go up and talk and start chatting with people. So it's also a lot easier when people recognize you from your channel. So that's something else that's a little easier. When you didn't, like 10 years ago, it was a little harder. But I used to do this at E3 too. When I was in video games, I used to do the exact same thing. And video games actually video games was a lot harder. It was a lot harder to get your foot in the door and really, because like social media wasn't a thing, and like YouTube even wasn't a thing. So unless you were like with an actual agency, or you were with like back then, like, you know, a magazine, or, you know, a journalist, you really couldn't get invited to anything. So it was really tough. So, but I was able to actually finagle, because I was also a journalist back in my college days. So I remember those techniques. So I guess that's it. It's like I started off as a journalist, and I guess journalists are automatically just in your face and just talk to people and just need to get answers. So I guess that's where it all came from college. Now I think about it. Anyhow,
that's where it all started.
So there was a lot.
You said you had a few mini topics for today that are not about the.
Well, there was a lot of things that happened while we were gone, and which makes sense because it was Gamma, and it actually was Toy Fair. For some reason, I thought Toy Fair was weird. I didn't really see Toy Fair used to be during the week, but it was on the weekend this year, so I totally missed it. But what's fascinating about Toy Fair and also Gamma is a lot of news came out last week, because you can't hide it, because everything is public once it goes to Toy Fair. So Toy Fair is in New York, where they show off all the toys to all the buyers, you know, all the big companies like the Walmarts and the Targets, and well, it used to be Toys R Us, but I guess the Amazons, whoever buys toys nowadays, and they show what is going to be available this Christmas. And so they show it now to get orders for the holidays. And that's what E3 used to be. That's pretty much what all these conventions used to be. Like the whole point of all these conventions is to show people what is coming so that they can place orders. And Gamma is the exact same, by the way. That's what Gamma was. Gamma is for TTRPGs and board games, where they show, hey, this is what's coming out, so you know what to expect. And this is specifically for retailers of smaller stores, of you know, game stores. So I did see the WoTC one, which was interesting, because WoTC had they had a much bigger presence, and I spoke to them and they said they used to have kind of a minimum presence at Gamma, but they definitely were more present there. And let's see, the thing that I saw that was the best was the Mr. Potato Head Beholder. Oh my god, that was really funny. That's like,
you just put like eye stalks in it, like Mr. Potato Head.
Take a look at it, type it in. I sent it to Derek, and he like sent me back like the puke emoji or something. He was so horrified by it. But that was a Toy Fair too. But yeah, it's a beholder in Mr. Potato Head. It's genius. Okay, I was like, all right, that's a good idea. So.
Wow. Okay,
you're looking at it now.
It has
you found it
for the beholder. It has different mouths. I see it.
I know, it's great. I mean, that's a great idea, though. You see, that's a good use of cross promotion. You see, that's an excellent
Mr. Beholder Head.
Yeah, Mr. Beholder. Let's see. 20-Sided Tavern is leaving New York, and it's going to go on tour, and that's been in Manhattan. It's pretty good. Actually, I'm gonna have to go see it again. I just saw that. So they're leaving May 11th, and then they're going on tour. They're going to be in Washington D.C. and then Chicago, and then after that, they're going to go somewhere else. I would definitely recommend seeing it at least once. I really enjoyed it. You know, it's for someone, if you don't see a lot of theater, you'll definitely like it, because, you know, it's not like Broadway, but I mean, it's a solid B+. You know, it has amazing special effects and a beautiful set, and it was very funny and interactive and just goofy. I mean, it was just good, and it's D&D. I mean, it's actual D&D. So, I couldn't tell you much about the story. I just remember it was silly. But that happened. The big news last week, which I almost wanted to do a topic on, but I didn't think we had enough to talk about, is that Project Sigil, which everyone has been talking about for years, was released. And not only did they release it, they're just like, oh yeah, here it is, and that's it. It was like, it was such a non-release. They just released it with almost no fanfare, no email, like it's just out. It's just sort of like, ta-da, and that's it. You would think they would have really like built up to this thing. I mean, they've spent millions on it. They've been testing it for years. It was a centerpiece of their videos last year, and it just sort of was released like out of nowhere.
Yeah, I hardly heard a peep about it.
I know. I mean,
I would have expected to see tons of marketing for it, given how much they put into it.
Well, I mean, I've been in it for a while. I mean, I think it's one of these things, just because it's sort of like you have to build the engine. There's two major things when you build something like this. Because in my mind, it's kind of like building an MMO. Because with World of Warcraft and all these MMOs, it's like, okay, you got to actually build the MMO and build the engine and build the world, right? But the world is totally empty. And then that takes forever. It takes a very long time to build that up. And then you finally get that done and working. And then you're like, okay, we just started. Now we got to populate it. And it's like, ugh. And no one remembers this, but World of Warcraft, when it launched, only levels 1 through 40 were done. Like after that, levels 40 through 60 were totally desolate. And levels 50 through like 40 to 50 had some stuff, but 50 to 60, you basically just had to grind. There was nothing to do. It was completely not finished. And it took them 2 years to finish the game. And I feel like Sigil is pretty much there. It's that it's done and it's out, but it's in rough shape and it has a small fraction of where it's going to be. But that's not a bad thing. That's just like, that's pretty common. It's like, okay, do you release it now where it's pretty stable and has just enough that people can start using it? Or do you wait another year where they really have a lot of content in it and it's fully fleshed out? And that's kind of a hard question to ask, but I would say, considering right now the live service is getting just absolutely destroyed in the video game space, and this could be seen. Is it a live service? Is it a VTT? It's kind of both. I mean, it's kind of in this weird space. So I can see that there's corporate pressure just to get it out, just so that it can start recouping some of its costs, or they can start writing it off on their sheets, on their expense reports and their taxes. Like, keep in mind, like, a lot of these decisions are financial. And it could be that they've invested so much and they've already written off so much of E1 that they might need some more write-offs. And they're doing a lot of write-offs. They've been writing off their inventory. They've been writing off their leases, and they're moving their headquarters to Rhode Island. From Rhode Island to Boston. They're moving their headquarters. So they could be just literally needing new write-offs, and this could be another write-off. So there could be a million reasons. Like, people could, I'm probably going to guess 95% chance it was released for tax reasons and not because it's done.
Interesting that was what it was. So we have a couple super chats.
Mm-hmm.
McDonough just gave us $1 with no comment, and Mark T for $2 said, I think they're doing a soft opening for it.
They call it, they'll call it whatever they want. They call it soft opening beta. I mean, it's not done. And so, of course, they're going to call it something. And so it doesn't support 5e. It supports anything, really. It's very lightweight. So you could, in theory, run Pathfinder in if you wanted to. I mean, yeah, it supports 5e directly, but there's no reason why you couldn't run Pathfinder in it with a little bit of tweaking and just use
if it just wasn't automated.
Yeah,
you just wanted the 3D tokens and
dice rolls,
the graphics and the dice rolls.
Yeah, and you just have your paper. You just have your, you just have everything manually done. I mean, realistically, like, so when I roll, when I run my games, I run them on Roll20 right now, but I'm moving over to Foundry full time. Long story short is the game I started, which we've been playing for like 3 or 4 years, was already in Roll20, and it was just too much work to move it into Foundry halfway through. They're level 19. We're almost done. We're very close. We're halfway through level 19. In fact, they just had an amazing, really good fight. If you want to listen to, it's live if you want to go to the YouTube. We had a great fight that they were just getting their asses handed to them. Oh, Mark. So he pulls out a level 9 heal scroll. So this is what happens.
I gave you level 9 heal as an example for a reason. I expected it.
Well, this is what happens.
But Steven asked me in advance about how to deal with this particular aura, and I was like, well, if they use a level 9 heal, then they're likely to pull it off.
Well, I'll tell you what happened.
Lose it? Okay.
So our level 19 guys were fighting 4 undead. And these undead were pretty strong, but what made them really bad is they're resistant to positive, like heavily resistant. And they had an aura that they automatically counterspelled any positive abilities. So
I didn't know there were going to be 4 of that.
There's 4 of them.
I hope he wasn't within all 4 of their auras.
So this is what happens, is they run up, they got the drop on them, the bad guys. They run in, they mess up the party bad. This one guy breathes. They have like this cone of flame.
Mm-hmm.
He breathes it on the entire party. The healer is in the cone. He rolls his reflex save. He fails. He's like, okay, let me hero point this, and then he rolls a 1, and I'm like,
no.
oh. He had it was 82 points, so 164 points.
Oh yeah, 164.
164 points of fire damage. He
at least survive that with like a few hit points left?
They're level 19. I mean, he had...
Yeah, but well, I mean, not everyone at level 19 has 18 con.
He had a 15... Well, he had like 50 hit points left. So it's his turn. And he's like, all right, time for the big guns. Then 1 action, I pull out my scroll. 2 action... I forgot what it was. Oh, he did I forgot what he did, but he used up all of his actions. He pulls out his level 9 scroll of heal, and I'm like, counter. He's like, no, and he was in all 4. First one fails. Second one fails. Third one fails. The last one, I rolled a 19.
Oh no! That's
I'm like,
so rude.
And I was like,
counteract.
I was like, not only is it counteract, but you just lost a 3,000 gold piece scroll. It's gone. And he's
so
like,
rude.
He was like, God,
that's a menace.
Damn. He was like, he's like, well, and they were scared. They're like, oh my God, this could be it. This could be it. But then he does chain lightning. It comes back to him. He's still standing.
How did he even last another round after that?
Because the other guys went right into melee, and they weren't using their flame. They were just... The other guys were like... They were getting critted for 100. Like, they were getting messed up. They were really low. And they were like, we are in trouble, man. Oh, and precision doesn't work? So the rogue is like, God, he couldn't get anything in. Well, he was doing like 20 points at a time. But the monk was hitting and doing 40 to 50 at a time. Like, he was really... So then Chain Lightning comes along.
That's an awesome spell.
He rolls really high. He rolled level 9 Chain Lightning. He rolled like an 8.
Why wasn't precision working? Is that for the special version that they were fighting?
Yeah, like they didn't have precision. They were immune to precision damage. These undead.
The original Grave Knight is not.
These are
I guess these special ones were
elite Grave Knights.
Oh,
they were level 19. They were nasty. Nope, immune precision. And he rolled like an 86, and first one failed, died. Second one, crit fail. Next one, failed. Next one, crit failed. We figured it out. He did 496 points of damage. And so I'm like, well, you got your revenge.
Yeah, that does sound like the perfect revenge.
Yeah, and he almost did 500. He just missed 500. And then after that, we're like, okay. And then the fight got. Then they were able. That was the turn the tide moment. But this was the thing. He's like, should I use Disrupt Undead or should I use chain lightning? And I was like, dude. And not only that, I didn't want to tell them because they have a 19 resistance to positive. So I did, dude, resist undead. Don't. I was like, well, if you do resist undead, you're only going to hit 1. That's what I said. I'm like, and a chain lightning. He's like, yeah, but I don't know if I want to use it. I'm like, and then he used resist undead the next round, and not only that, he missed. He didn't even do the it's like a critically successful. He did a crit success on his roll. So whatever. Anyhow, it ended the session with them barely living. And the funny thing is, they're like, here we are, we're level 19. Oh, he did use scared to death, and it worked because they're not immune. They were not immune to mental.
Wait, they should be immune to death. Why were they immune to precision and not death?
Oh, is that considered a death effect?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, they were immune to death. Well, it didn't matter. You know what? The guy only had 50 hit points left.
They're not immune to scared to death completely. They will get frightened by it.
No,
but
they were frightened.
They're immune to the dying.
Oh, no. He wouldn't. No, he got frightened. He didn't. He got scared to death.
Yeah.
He failed, and then he was frightened too.
They're only immune to the dying.
Yes. No. But he still used it just because frightened 2.
Yeah,
frightened
awesome.
2 is fantastic.
It's great.
Oh yeah, that was great. And so, like, that Frightened 2 was just enough. Like, they were always missing by 1. So that turned the tide. The Frightened 2, they just pounded on the last guy. Plus, he loves to use it. And I was like, I can't see why not. They have a will save, and they can talk, and they seem to have intelligence, and they're not immune to mind. So I was like, anyhow, very good. It was very good. Very good fight. But you know what? They're level 19, and yet... they are scared to death because everything in here, man, they're fighting gods. They're literally fighting demons and devils and archangels and monitors, and these things are so powerful, and they are just, I've never seen them go so quietly. They're just moving so quietly, so carefully through this dungeon, and I was like, it's kind of funny at these super high levels.
Yeah, you tell me your group is pretty rowdy in dungeon, but my group and I always go quietly. Like if you saw me doing that weird the gauntlet delve thing, my character was always sneaking around trying to not get into fights.
They never do this. They're very because every time they do bumble, because there's so many traps in this, and the traps have been really bad. Like, they do teleport and randomly teleports them somewhere else. One of them, they had a trap that cast weird on them. Like, they're like, okay, like, this place ain't fooling around. Like, okay, we're one of them, like, trapped in the walls and turned into a 2-dimensional being. Like, they're like, okay, we're going slow because they're getting separated. I think that's really the issue. It's like, taking a lot of damage when you're a group is fine, but when you're actually, getting separated with these spells, that messes you up badly, as you know. Agents of Edgewatch, yeah. So, let's see. We had one super chat. Oh, but do the super chat, and then we'll quickly go back to the few other news.
Yeah, it's about someone who I don't know who they are, called Alex Macris.
Maybe
it said that we should have them on, but
don't know who he is.
I don't know who that is.
I do not know either. Well, anyhow, so Sigil came out, and it just sort of, I don't know. I thought it was going to be like a big deal, but I'll tell you why. And we didn't talk about it. A couple of other people talked about it. Is that, and I think we could do it. I don't know. It's like, I don't know if I want to do an episode or we just talk about it today. But the earnings came out a week ago, and Professor Dungeon Master did something, and like a lot of other channels did. And the big takeaway from the earnings was, I looked at the earnings, I typed in Dungeons & Dragons to see how often it came up. How many times... Now, keep in mind, Dungeons & Dragons just released a brand new edition that supposedly is doing fantastic, right? It's doing great.
And Q1... is this for Q4 of last year?
Yeah, well, it covers both the player's handbook, an entire couple months.
And the Dungeon Master's Guide.
And the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Not the Monster Manual, because you won't have that until next quarter.
And it was Christmas. So
yes. So it's Christmas with the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, you're going to say that the number is low, and so it's going to be lower than what we expect. But, like, how long is this report? How many pages long is this report?
I'll tell you in a second. Let's see.
Because if it's like 5 sentences, then that's different than if it's like 10 pages long.
It is. I'll tell you in a second. The Hasbro earnings. The presentation is 40 pages long.
Okay, so it's 40 pages long. I'm going to say that Dungeons and Dragons showed up 5 times in those 40 pages.
Now you guessed 5 too many. It showed up zero.
I had a part of the back of my head that was like, it might even have been 0, so that Steven could say that. But I was like, I'm going to guess 5. That seems fair. For 40 pages, that's a lot of pages.
And didn't show up even once. The main reason is because if you break it down and look carefully, I'm trying to find the exact numbers, but tabletop...
It's weird that it didn't show up any amount of times.
You know why?
Because I would have expected a new pseudo edition launch just based on any of the previous ones, including 3.5, which was also a pseudo edition launch, or any of those. I would have expected that to be enough to come up.
Well, it didn't come up because it was way down from last year. Tabletop is way down. So...
Oh, so like the overall trends from coming down from the pandemic were strong enough that even releasing a new pseudo edition didn't give them like the tailwind.
I guess not. I mean, they just, if you look at the numbers, they just, I don't have it right in front of me. Sorry. I had this before I closed. I had to restart my computer. Excuse me for a second, but it actually has the numbers from last year versus this year. And where is it? Here we go. Tabletop gaming.
See, this is the real numbers. Like BookScan, that's just a guess. These are going to be the real numbers that Hasbro themselves put out to their investors.
Tabletop
so what is the difference?
Gaming.
Okay.
Is down from 2023 down to... So all of 2023 down to...
So is tabletop gaming also including like tabletop versions of Magic, but not digital Magic?
Nope. Digital is up. Digital and licensed, which includes things like Baldur's Gate and all that, that went from 97 million to 132 million. So that's up 35%.
But was tabletop including Magic, or is Magic a different?
No, that's just
okay. So that's the D&D, but not the digital.
Yes, it is down 22.
Does it include D&D Beyond?
Maybe. I think it does, but it's down 22%. 22%. Last year, as in 2023.
Wait, it's down 22% from the year with the OGL crisis?
Yes. Yep. That's just give you an idea.
That's not good.
No, it's not good.
That should have been. That's measured against the time during which there was actively the OGL crisis and a bunch of people unsubscribed to boycott, and then some resubscribed after or whatever. But that's not good if it's down 22%. Oh wait, though it wouldn't have been the OGL crisis because it's Q4, not Q1.
Well, it is the 3 months ended. Well, you're right. It's not.
It would have been right before, just before. If it's 2020, if it's the end of 2020.
Hold on, I'm looking at year ends also. Hold on, I was looking at month end, but then year ended. Tabletop gaming yearly for the entire year.
Yeah.
Is down.
This is for the year.
It for the entire year is down 3%. It's not even up, and for the entire year, digital is up. Now that includes Wizards of the Coast digital. That does include Magic, I believe.
Okay, so digital should include digital Magic, right?
No, digital is separate. Digital's up 22%, and that's
okay. But tabletop includes Magic.
It's just they call it tabletop gaming. It just says Wizards of the Coast and digital gaming. Digital was up 22%. Tabletop is down 3%.
Okay. But if tabletop includes Magic, then fluctuations in Magic could override the fluctuations in D&D.
Well, it's hard to say. I don't think it does, actually. I'm actually pretty sure. Oh, no, it does. And I'll tell you why. Because Magic is at the top.
Oh, it's in a separate category. All right.
Yeah, Magic is Total game. Yeah, Magic's its own thing.
All right.
But anyhow,
So
long story short,
so D&D was down 3%.
It's just down. I mean, it was at best flat, and at worst, it was down.
Now,
So,
to be fair, for the whole year amount, the reason why I like Q4 better, although Q4 was worse for them. If it was
Q4
down
was
22,
atrocious for them. Yeah, they did
when
terrible.
you think about the whole year, though,
yeah,
that year includes like Q3, which was like right before they released, or in Q2, like right before they released the new books, but they hadn't released it yet.
Yeah, but this
and
is the
that's
thing.
usually like the worst time. But weirdly, Q4 was worse for them, even though they
really
had
bad.
released the edition.
Yes, they
Or
did.
was it just that 2023's Q4 was really good for some reason?
Right. If anything, they're going down. They're going the wrong way.
No, but can you see, was 2023's Q4 just like absurdly high compared to all these other numbers? Is that why?
Well, I can't see unless I go to past
reports. It only
reports.
shows the comparison.
It only shows. Well, no, actually it does. Hold on, I do have it. If I look.
So one of two things must be true. Either 2024's Q4 was very bad, or 22% bad, or 2023's Q4 was just like bizarrely high compared to the rest of 2023.
But the point is that
neither of those is like a good sign for them for the trend, but at least it'd be better for them to hear that 2023's Q4 was weirdly high than to hear that 2024's, when they launched a new pseudo edition, was very low.
Yeah, I mean, it's right here. 3 months ended. So the quarter. So basically the Christmas quarter.
Yes,
the Christmas quarter, October, November, December in 2023, tabletop, including digital gaming. So we'll just put everything together.
Yes.
Was 363 million, and then last year, 2024, it was 339 million. So it went down. So went from 363 to 339. So any way you cut it, it was down. Like any way you cut it, like no matter how you look at it, it was down.
Obviously, it was down. I was just curious because it was down a lot in that quarter, but it was down less over the course of the year. So that must have meant that there are some other things canceling it out across the rest of the year, I guess.
And this, by the way, is just for D&D, because someone said Magic is crashing. Magic is not crashing. In fact, Magic is going to probably make $2 billion this year because the Final Fantasy sold out in less than 24 hours when it was announced. And
so Math Guy Dave in chat says that he has confirmed from other people's analyses that D&D Beyond is in that digital category.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
okay.
That does mean that potentially now, Stephen, you did include
I did
digital.
Include it. It's still down.
You eventually included digital, and you still showed that it was down almost 10% when you did that, but not 22%, but still almost 10%.
I guarantee part of that is, remember what I said, that something like 10% of people unsubscribed from D&D Beyond, and they said it was no big deal? Yeah, it's a big deal.
But Stephen, by Q4 2023, those 10% of people would have already unsubscribed.
No, because 2024, but they would have unsubscribed during 2023, but then the renewals come up in 2024.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yes, they would have had the yearly subscription already. So if it was annual, it wouldn't have mattered.
Correct.
Okay, I get you.
It just took. I knew it was going to take. It takes like 2 years for that to really gel. 1.5 years to 2, which is exactly what. The thing is that let's put everything together. It's like new system, new game, should have tons of hype. It should be at least selling as well as it did the year before, which was the end of a game, the end of a 10-year system, where it's like. This is quote as good as it'll get. Like it doesn't get much better than this.
Generally, a new edition, even pseudo edition release, is a spike. We've seen it in the past when you look at sales. It is a spike,
always a spike.
Even if it's like 4E and it eventually goes. What that went on to disappoint Hasbro, even though it didn't sell badly, it just disappointed Hasbro. Even then, it was a spike when the new edition came out, right?
There's always a spike, but. That was the issue, and
there should have been a spike, but it sounds like if there was at least something else that we don't know has canceled it out enough that it was still at a loss compared to the year before.
And also, this is what I want to say that's really important is that there's so many of these reports that came out saying D&D is the fastest selling. D&D is this. D&D, it's like they're very careful with their wording. Okay, they're very careful saying how well D&D was selling and how many people are creating characters online. That's why I was waiting to see these, because these reports are legally binding. And you can say
I was the one who kept saying when you were like, this looks bad, this could be bad. I was like, I want to wait until we see what they tell investors, because that has to be...
It has to be accurate. And it's very legally binding. That's why as soon as I did, the first thing I did is type in the words Dungeons & Dragons, because I wanted to see what they said, and they said nothing. And that means, like, you know, you can say a lot in PR and you can finagle it, but you can't finagle it. These are like raw numbers, you know, like you can't just say, oh, we're doing better than we've ever done before. Well, then you have to back it up. And more importantly, if you get sued, you have to be able to bring your receipts and show what happened. So sure enough, it's like, what a surprise. They didn't say anything about it. It was never mentioned once in any of the reports other than tabletop. And they do mention it in terms of, it does say like Wizards of the Coast includes Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons. Like that's the only caveat. Like in the footnotes, it includes Dungeons and Dragons, but they never called that.
Was there in a footnote?
It was always in a footnote, and a footnote doesn't count because that's clarification, and that's in all the reports. So, but they never called it out, and they used to call it out all the time. Now, again, is this a good thing or bad thing? It's nothing. It just is, but it shows that this whole concept of them, God, it's really amazing, because this all came about from them wanting to buy D&D Beyond. Like this all everything is stemming from them buying D&D Beyond, because supposedly the license was with the company, was it Fangraph? Not Fangraph. I forgot the name of the company that owned D&D Beyond. Is that they had a license to basically create D&D material, and they were getting all the money. That the D&D Beyond was getting all the money, and like, you know, WoTC was getting a very small amount, and D&D Beyond was making something like $13 million a month. Like, it was doing extremely well. And they looked into it, they being WoTC, and said, hey, we don't want to do this with you. We want to, to take it over. Can you sell it to us? And they said, no. Like, why would we sell it to you? We don't want to sell it to you. We're doing great. And we have a contract with you. But the contract was only for 5th edition. So that's when that's when 1D&D came around. They're like, and they literally announced, okay, we're making a new edition of D&D. And they announced they're going to make a new edition. Within months, D&D Beyond was sold.
To be fair, they were always cagey. They were like, it's not really a new edition. It's 1D&D.
Well, because they didn't
want people to jump off,
right?
Like happened at the end of the 3rd edition,
right? Which is what always happens whenever you announce a new edition. Sales go they tank. So they were in this terrible position. I mean, think about it. It's like, okay, the sales are at the highest they've ever been, ever. Like, this was happening at the peak of D&D, the peak of the pandemic, like 2021, approximately 2022, around there, when things were doing great. So they're like, crap, how do we take over, D&D Beyond without paying an enormous amount of money? Like, they probably could have bought it, but the price would have probably been like 400, 500 million, something insane, like half a $500 million, something ridiculous. That would take them forever to get their money back. So their poison pill was, okay, we'll announce a new version, and we won't sell you the rights, and which they did. And then they got the new version, but now they're stuck because, okay, if they make a new version of D&D, which is a 6th edition, a true 6th edition, they literally have to rewrite everything in D&D Beyond. And this was the day they bought D&D Beyond is the day that they stopped being a gaming company and they became a software company. And that is why we will never see another version of D&D other than 5th edition. Ever. Forever.
There might be small updates like the 2024, maybe in 2034. They'll be like, hey, it's D&D 2034. We're making some other changes. Look what we've got. We've got a new monster manual.
Yep.
We're going to do something that's never been done before in any monster manual. We're going to put expansive lore entries into each of the monsters. And we're adjusting the classes based on people's feedback of from 10 years of playing D&D 2024 and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they'll do that, but you're right that the software opportunity cost just makes it very difficult for them to do like a revolutionary edition as opposed to an evolutionary edition that's just sort of a partial edition shift.
Yeah, I mean, this is for better, for worse, because a lot of people have been asking, I've been seeing, I watch a lot of YouTube, and everyone's like, well, why, now all the books are out, a lot of people are doing retrospectives, and they're wondering why they didn't go further. Why didn't they do more? Why is it so similar? And it's putting it in a really weird spot by making it so similar to 5th edition. It's like, okay, what is this edition? Is it 5th edition? Is it 6th edition? Is it 5.5? Like, what is it? Is it a remaster? And no one knows. No one has
a remaster.
It is a remaster. It is a remaster.
That's basically what it is.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they were always like sort of trying to say that it was, I think, most of the time, except for they were also had other marketing speak like that kept changing every so often. But I think they never tried to claim that it was going to be revolutionary. They always were saying it's going to be small. It's mostly just like a remastering kind of thing. They didn't use the words remaster, but
yeah. Now the one issue is that they couldn't figure out how to market it. It's not that it wasn't a remaster, but like, how do you market it? It's like, it's very hard to market a remaster because why? Okay, I have Dungeons and Dragons. I've been playing forever.
Yes, you've been playing for so long, Stephen, since 2014.
Exactly. I've been playing so long. I've been playing for 5 years, which is a long time for these
You've
newbies.
been playing since 2014. You picked up that Player's Handbook right when it came out.
Right.
And so
now,
why would you want to get the next thing?
Why?
And that was what they were trying to build the theory of the case for. So that is why they focused on exactly what, when we were first talking about what is this going to be, what I predicted that it would be, more or less, which is very few nerfs, except for maybe on certain things that were so egregious that a lot of the fan base was even saying it was making the game less fun, like Counterspell. A lot of buffs to classes, and particularly like rough areas in classes, so that would answer the question of why are you picking this up? Well, I love monks, and monks, they got a raw deal in 2014, but 2024 helped them out. No, that's not entirely me. I'm being a hypothetical person saying that, but that could be a reason for that person to get 2024. So I think they tried to build a theory of the case by carefully choosing how to do an incremental remaster of the edition in a way that would make people more interested. Or the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, that one's a little trickier because as a game designer and someone who loves understanding information flow of the system, I think what they did in the 2024 DMG is excellent, where they made it like much more usable for someone who's trying to learn the system. 2014
was literally...
Oh, yeah. No, I know.
It was probably one of the most... I mean, the behind the scenes, it's going to come out one day, but the behind the scenes is that it was written... I mean, was it James Wyatt wrote half of it? He was reassigned to Magic, and it was literally written by like 20 other people, and that's why
of course
it's a terrible
the trouble with marketing that as much as the Player's Handbook, though, is that unfortunately the existing player base has had to deal with that old, not as good Dungeon Master Guide for long enough that they've eventually learned to play the game enough to make it work. Even if there are parts of that book that are so hidden that not only did the player base not know they were there, but at some points, like, people at WoTC advertised something as being added in 2024 that existed in the 2014 because even they forgot that it was in there. But by this point, people did they were able to use it. So it was less, it's not as easy to market that. And with the monsters, that's the easiest one to market because the art is great. Their new changes, every new change that they previewed for the monster manual looked great to me when I looked at those previews. So that's all they've been trying to do is build that theory of the case. Someone asked in chat, how did Paizo try to do it for their remaster? And I think their theory of the case was basically, we got stabbed in the back by the OGL crisis. We're desperate because our entire game, if they actually are going to try to pull 25% of all the money from anyone who uses the OGL, our entire business model's in jeopardy. We need to change to something that's not using the OGL. We're sorry, please bear with us. We're going to make it as great as we can and make good changes that will help improve the game from your perspective. That was sort of their theory of the case.
Yeah,
I know there's some people who like the original better than the remaster.
Yeah, but you can still use it.
I'm not saying it was better or worse here. I'm saying that was their
They had a
marketing
very
push.
easy sell because they didn't have to lie. They basically just said, yeah, we have to divorce ourselves from the OGL, so this is why. That's it. They didn't have to hide anything. They were like completely open. They're like, yeah, like we didn't want to do this.
In some cases, this is one of the only times someone did something like this, and they were seen as, because they were the underdog, right? They were the underdog just trying to find a way to survive, and people who supported them were like, we support you.
Wow.
We understand. Whereas any other company that would do that, which could include a hypothetical Paizo, who might have, Paizo might have done a remaster anyway in some number of years just because they wanted to. But in this case, they had a really good reason to do it when they did it. Other companies, the reason becomes sales are not doing as well, and we want to try to do a refresh, right?
Yeah. But so now let's look at it. So you have all of D&D Beyond tied into 5th edition. You're going to have this Project Sigil tied into 5th edition. You literally have more of... You have more of third-party materials tied into 5th edition. You have so much tied into 5th edition and so much tied into this back-end engine, this digital engine. They're stuck. They're stuck with 5th edition forever. Okay?
For sure.
They're just, it is. Well, I'll tell you something.
It would take a seismic shift.
It would be
some
massive.
kind of bigger sort of event than the OGL of messing around with things for them to really move course at this point, I think.
Yeah. And what's fascinating, so just today I got an email from Foundry saying, Foundry version 13 is coming out. I'm like, I just got used to 12. Like, they come out with a new version every single year. Every single year. And we have to update our modules every time they come out with a new version. And we started with version, I think, 8. So, we're up to 13 now. And sometimes it's very easy and sometimes it's very hard. But right now, we looked at it. It looks like they're pretty minor, the changes. But we have... 20, 30 modules. I mean, I got a lot of modules, so I think it's closer to 30. So I got to go back and, change 30 modules. So we got to go back and change them all. Now, that's just me. Okay? If you imagine, it's like if they had to update it, they would have to write the rules for D&D. Like, okay, let's do a thought experiment. Let's say, hey, you know what? We're going to do a brand new version of D&D. We're going to rewrite the book. We're throwing it out. We're going to make 6th edition. A true 6th edition.
We're changing spellcasting again.
Everything.
People said they didn't like Vancian as much.
By the way,
the sorcerer and the wizard were not as close to each other. So magic spellcasting is completely different than you remember it. We've got like these rich, deep fighting styles for the different martial classes so that you can really feel the class fantasies in each of them. Monsters will have like special attack routines that make them like really engaging to fight with for the GM. And hey, since this is D&D 2034 6th edition, they will also have suggestions for if you want to do solo play or play with our AI monsters, how you can automate the monsters' routines and all of these other things.
Right. By the way, someone wrote, hey, you guys sound like a software company now. Well, because They are a software company, and also I run a software company, so I'm just using my experience.
Software.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using my experience and I'm using my background to kind of help people understand. So
let's say they want to design that version.
Right.
I'm giving some examples to people in chat can listen and think of what would be different. So Stephen, what will happen? What will they have to now update? What will they have to do?
The very first thing you need to do is you need to write the rules. And they have to finalize the rules.
Right, they have to be play tested.
Yes.
Iterated.
Yep.
Feedback has to be given. And guess what? If they want to play test it, maybe the first thing they have to do isn't finalize the rules, but they might need to give tools to play test with. If they're trying to play test how the rules will work with those tools. Like suppose they wanted to have solo play with AI monsters that have an AI routine to use the monster's special abilities, not just AI, but like ones like Gloomhaven, where you can draw from a card deck if you don't want to use a computer to do it, right? They would need to have those tools ready for the playtest if they wanted to playtest the tools. Otherwise, they're playtesting without the tools.
So once you have to get the entire rule set done. And now the rule set is done or mostly done. Now you get to code it. You have to actually then code the rule set. And you can do some of it. Some of it can be done in parallel. Like this is how it's done in software companies, is that you basically go through it and you figure out, okay, how much of this do we know is going to be in here no matter what? And it's usually maybe about a third. So you'd be like, okay, we're going to still have AC. We're going to still have hit points. We're going to still have attacks that are going to work a certain ways. We're going to still have monster tokens. Like those things can all be coded. Okay, that can all be coded. There'll be names for the monsters. So there's certain things that they're going to put down in stone. That's not going to change. But if they're going to come up with a new magic system, that has to be figured out. And they can't code that until that's really done. If they're going to, come up with new abilities or new methodologies for how monsters work or how any core aspect of the game works, it has to be pretty much solidified and finalized so that they can code it. And if they make a mistake or they change it during playtesting, then they got to redo the coding. And this is something that can take years, not months, but years to fix. So the problem with this is that D&D and other games, they're written to the last second. Like Mark knows better than anyone.
I know. Trust me. I was literally at my wife's family's over Christmas, but on my computer doing work for trying to get Pathfinder 2nd edition spells complete. This was after the playtest. The playtest spells had already been written. This was updating, adding, changing, getting the final version of spells. And that was when ostensibly I was on break. Right. And I had gone to go on vacation. I was still working. And up until then, I was working like 80-hour weeks, no days off. Like that's just what it was. And it still was very tight. That's just how it is with those rules. So realistically, you're not going to have the finalized version of them as much in advance as you would want. And how long would it take? Let's say, Stephen, that you and I were working on this 6E. And then I finally, after playtesting it for probably like over a year with the playtest folks, I said, I've playtested it. I've adjusted it. It's now March 5th. Here it is. And I didn't change any of that 1/3 of things I told you I wasn't going to change, because I might have, but I didn't. How long will it take you, Stephen, the software guy, starting on March 5th before the software is all ready?
I mean, it'll take, depending on how, if it's a brand new version.
Let's say I changed like everything, but I did successfully tell you about 1/3 of the stuff that wasn't changed, like tokens on the map.
This is usually how it works, is that 1/3 right away, and then 1/3, because then you have to rewrite an engine. But you see, what I would probably say is that the one good thing is that D&D between versions is usually similar enough that you can probably reuse most of the engine, and you don't have to write a brand new engine, okay? Think of the way Starfinder is getting transported into Pathfinder. Like, that's an example of, like, yeah, you're still using the same engine. Yeah, you got to rewrite a fair amount of the rules, but the engine is kind of staying the same. But if they really want to go 6th edition, I would say the meeting would be
let's say
like...
it's an evolutionary edition, new spellcasting, combat styles,
right.
monsters.
It's like, well, you
routines,
can't use
all the things I
everything.
said.
You can use some of it. So that would mean, well, we can use half of the engine, but the other half is going to have to be rewritten.
And the graphics for things like Sigil, let's say those are fine.
Yeah, that you can reuse, right? So that's actually some of the heavy lift right there. I mean, it takes years. I mean, it's,
you would say, if I was here March 5th, 2025, I handed you the completed thing, you would say, give me till March 5th, 2027?
You would need like 2 to 3 years.
All right, optimistically, 2027. Now think about that, everyone who's watching this. There's just no way in the tabletop RPG world. Remembering that we play tested this theoretically throughout 2024, this new version of D&D that we're obviously the years are off, right? We're just making this up. We play tested this for a year. Then at the end of 2024, I quickly in 3 months somehow destroyed myself to get all the playtest feedback in and get a finalized version to Steven. And then he tells me 2027 is when the D&D Beyond is going to be ready. And it's like, there's no way they're going to wait 2 years from then before they have both a launch and the D&D Beyond. They're not going to take that money off the table, right?
No, they can't. And now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, because let's look at another example. Let's look at Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering is kind of in the same boat, but they're smart because the rules for Magic the Gathering has been around for 30 years. Okay? Yeah. I think it's 31 now. And they just iterate them. And they're able to they do update it just enough that each version is a little different. And they have new rules, they have new keywords, they have new abilities, but the game stays the same. The game would remain the same. The game remains the same, but they do update it just enough that it feels different each time, which is also one of the reasons why Magic is a $1 billion brand. It's because it literally is, it's not perfect, but goddamn, it's close. It's very close to perfect when it comes to, they got it the first time out. It's kind of amazing. So they're able, and they're never going to change Magic. Like, they just never will. Like, another 50 years from now, everyone's going to be playing Magic. And if I take my cards from today, in 50 years, you'll probably still be able to play them in 50 years. And they might be a little different. And some of the spell effects, might no longer be active, but you'll still know what they were. That's what D&D is going to have to become. I have the feeling that you're going to play D&D in 20 years, and it's going to pretty much be 5th edition. And there might be some new rules. They did announce there is going to be a new spell system coming out this year. They did announce that. So that is I'm very curious to see. I don't know what that means.
Sure, but if it's an optional second spell system,
right,
like Psionics, obviously it doesn't mean that it's Psionics, right? That's very different than if you redid all the magic of the game.
Right. Hey, Derek, you want to come on? You can come on late. I don't care. The game would remain the same. He knows what that, because that was from 4th edition.
Yes.
It's my favorite line. But
it's in that ad where it makes fun of the people playing every other edition.
Yeah. So basically what I'm getting at is that get comfortable with 5th edition, because the rules they're so heavily embedded in D&D Beyond and Project Sigil and now third-party materials. They're not going anywhere. Okay, it's just not. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think the bones of 5th edition are pretty good. And more importantly, let me tell you how World of Warcraft works, okay? Because World of Warcraft, and Mark knows World of Warcraft pretty well, I'm going to tell you how it worked behind the scenes. They used to change the classes, pretty significantly every couple of months. They really changed the classes. Hunter went from, I had, when I was playing 100, like 15 different keys that I used to use, down to, okay, it was still like 8 keys, but still, like, it's like, I used to have something like 20 keys I'd be using during a fight, and now it went down to 8. And then they came up with the different talent trees, and they're always tweaking it. Like, every couple of months, you have to relearn the class, and they're always tweaking it. It's actually through Excel spreadsheets is how they did it. I don't know how they do it now because I haven't been there in a while, but they're able to tweak the engines and the math just through Excel and figure out like how much healing does, how much damage does, like how long how long do you have to do before not a recap, not a reload, a recast, before you can recast. Like, all that is just literally tweaked through very simple numbers. And that's the real secret, is that if they're able to get it, and that's kind of how Magic works, is that if they're able to get D&D to a very basic core structure, and then they're able to then just tweak it a little bit here and there. This is, by the way, and Mark will blush, but this is why I think Pathfinder 2 is so goddamn brilliant, because Pathfinder 2 is modular. It was written very much like a computer programming language, and you can take all the modules and reassemble them however you want to make whatever you want. And because of that, you have infinite possibilities. It's very easy to use both as a computer language and both as a computer model as well as a gaming model. And I think D&D is going to get there. I don't think it's there yet, but I think they're slowly turning it into something closer to Pathfinder, whether they want to or not, because it has to be modular. It has to be more modular, and it has to be a little bit easier for them to join, if that makes sense. Hold on, I think Derek might want to join us, so hold on.
He said he was in between meetings.
Oh, he's in between meetings.
That doesn't mean that he has enough time to come on.
Yeah. Okay.
So we were definitely very intentionally making things modular. Like, I was in computer science before I became a game designer, and so I tried to use sort of ideas from modular and object-oriented design when creating the system to make it easier to learn, because you learn the main mechanics once and then it's modular, so you see it, the same things you already learned all over the place. Like, the exact reason I would like that, and a good example of how not to do that, is like Turn Undead in older editions, where it was always like, you have to look up the chart every time because it doesn't work like anything else in the game. Do you remember that in like AD&D Turn Undead, where it would just be like,
yeah,
what the heck is this? There's no way you can
there was a separate chart.
It's a complete chart that is not similar to anything else. And so I wanted it so that every time you roll a check, no matter what, and even in Pathfinder First Edition, there were things where it's like, well, if it's a climb check, that if you succeed by 5 or fail by 5, then something could happen. But if it's a this check, then it's not like that. And you had to remember all the exceptions. So I wanted it to be like, no, every time when you roll, you know what to expect.
Got it. I mean, it's funny because as soon as I saw Pathfinder, I mean, I'm a coder, so I got it. I was like, I get it. This is brilliant. It's modular. It's easy to put together. It's easy to identify. It's easy to change. It's easy to build new classes, new races, new ancestries, new magic, everything. Everything is modular. In a weird way, I will say the one downside of that, which they've been pretty good at, is that it can get almost overwhelming, because if you make it too easy to make it that you can add stuff, then there's no balance. But that was the brilliance of Pathfinder, is because you made the math so tight, because it's easy to make something modular, but then it's hard to balance it. But if you make the math so tight, I know people complain about it, but it's there on purpose, because otherwise it will get out of hand and it'll quickly spiral out of control. So this way, yes, you can combine the pieces however you want, but it's always within this very, very tight confines of where the math has to hit. So you can't go crazy. It just doesn't let you go crazy. A good example, we were talking about this, like how Daggerheart's working, is like Daggerheart, your abilities are based on cards, And I asked them, I was talking to them a lot over the week, and I said, well, what happens at like 10th level? What happens at high level, like 9, 10th level? And they said, oh, simple. You can only use 9 cards or whatever. I don't know. I think it's 9. It's like, that's it. You can have a hand of 100 cards. It's like Gloomhaven. It's like, but you only get to use 9. So even if you got amazing cards, you can't get, there's not enough power creep because we box you in to not allow you to get too powerful. And Pathfinder does that through the math. It doesn't do it through, it does it through some ways. Like, you can only have 10 magic items. That's another way that you can't get too crazy, is that you're limited to how many magic items. You're limited how many Apex items. You're limited how many spells you can have. You're limited how many slots for specific magic items can go on. Limit how many rings you can use. So, there are limits. And people hate those limits. And I always see people complaining. They're like, oh, I don't like them. Like, yeah, those limits are good. Okay, if you didn't have those limits, then it'd be the Wild West and things would get out of hand and would become unbalanced. Like, you kind of need limits in these games. But the one thing I did see between D&D 2014 and 2024 is I see them starting very carefully and very quietly in the back. In my opinion, they're enacting those limits. And I think that's the Pathfinder Paizo people that came over that are helping implement that, whether they realize it or not, which I don't think
really
anyone
see that at all.
What's that?
I don't know where you're talking about that, but I didn't see that.
I see that in the monsters. I saw that in the monsters more. I didn't really see
some of the monsters. Some of the monsters, I saw some math that Paul Hughes, who is one of our 5e guys, who is just a 5e monster head. He knows everything about 5e monsters. He does analyses across levels of monsters, and he did one on his blog that showed that on the higher level monsters, they have buffed up their stats in a few ways. But that isn't the same as taking a close hand on where the PC's numbers are. The PCs still can have wildly varying amounts. It's just mostly saying that they know that people are going to be higher than they thought by the time they get to higher levels, so the monsters need to be a little bit stronger too.
Right. Well, I think they did a good job at making the monsters stronger and just being able to hit harder and actually being a challenge, because the PCs, unless they rewrite or really start putting some limits, they're going to always go out of the box and kind of get crazy. So they went the other way, which I thought was pretty smart. It's like, well, if we can't limit the PCs, then we got to make the monster stronger.
Right. That's the only thing they could have done, because if they limited the PCs, that would have made it too much of a bitter pill to swallow as an update. It's like, get this update, you're going to get nerfed.
Right.
No one would have wanted to do that.
Exactly.
It actually probably would have been better for the health of GMs being able to run the game more easily and groups not having varying power levels, but it would have killed the economics of the game. And so there wouldn't have been a way to do that.
Right.
Now, we had a chat from Derek just to show, Derek doesn't like anything usually, but he said, I'm weird. I like the turn undead table.
Of course he did. Because he is weird. But, so anyhow, that's what I was really getting at, is that, and also monsters have been on the brain because I've been working on the Battlezoo Bestiary, is that is a good way to do it. It's like, if you make the monsters stronger and you make the monsters, and they've admitted it, they're like, oh, the monsters were weak because I think that's BS, by the way, because they said, well, if you ran them perfectly, their CR was appropriate. And I was like, come on, really? I think they just messed up and didn't want to announce. They just messed up the math and didn't really want to say anything on it. They're just like, yeah, we didn't know what we were doing. We just kind of threw it together because the team was small. I think the real answer is the team was really small. We were very rushed. No one thought anyone was going to care. So we just kind of threw this together and we just did whatever we thought felt right. And that's that. And then it turned out, oh, well, the monsters are way too easy, especially at higher levels, because people usually don't test the higher levels that well. And then after 10 years and billions of hours playing, they realized, yeah, we got to make the monsters a lot harder. And it's a lot easier to make a monster easier than to make a monster harder on the fly. Way easier. So
that's what I feel too. I always feel that it's easier to make things easier than to make them hard enough for your group.
Because you could just take off hit
something
points,
that is at least challenging enough for your group. It's easier to do something else.
Well, I mean, I will sometimes not in the like. Sometimes you can just take off the AC, like like you literally just they don't know. I mean, they don't know what it is. It's like you know what? I'm just gonna make it 2 lower for this counter for whatever reason. Like maybe they have the wrong makeup, and the monster really is like they have the wrong party makeup, and I don't really want to kill them, and this is really not supposed to be a super challenging monster, just like a kind of fun fight. So I'm like, I'll just make it a little lower. They won't know, and it's very easy to do, and it's also mentally, I feel, I don't know, it's just me. It's like I feel weird adding stuff to a monster. Hit points I will add to sometimes just to make them like for various reasons, but hit points also you can just get rid of more. It's like all right, you did 50 points of damage. I'll put down. I do also. I'm online. I'm like, I'll do 70.
So I understand why you feel weird about it. It's something that I agree with, not just in monsters, but just overall for a system. Which is, if you think of the tabletop group as a kind of like a family, okay, just a little bit. You have the players are like the kids, and the 2 parents of the family are the GM and the game system. Okay. So one of those parents is going to get to be the cool parent, and one of them is going to be the strict parent. And the difference between Pathfinder 2 and D&D is that D&D 5e specifically, because the changes edition to edition, is that 5e kind of is like, I'm going to be the cool parent. You can just do whatever you want with your characters. You can get up to really high math that makes you do 2 times, 3 times, 4 times as much damage as some other character builds would do. Do whatever you want, and then GM has to learn to be the strict parent. It's like, wait, hold on, I'm banning silvery barbs. Ooh, yeah, 2014 counter spell. We're house ruling counter spell. We're making these adjustments. I buffed the monsters. I added to their stats, and it doesn't feel good to be the strict parent or say like, no, you can't play Narakokra or whatever. Whereas in Pathfinder 2, the idea is that the game system is the strict parent. Then the GM gets to be the cool parent. He says, yes, you can use this rare thing. Hey, yeah, this monster, I can just make it weaker. I'll give you more stuff. Take free archetypes on top of what I already gave you. Mm-hmm. If the system is already being kind of strict, then it's easy to be the one. Since you're the one who likes to actually talk to these other players, the game system is like a book. It's not a person. It doesn't have feelings, really. Mm-hmm. And the designers are far away, so they don't have to talk to the people on a weekly basis. So it's easier to let you be the cool parent.
So that kind of was the long story. Why, D&D is going to stay the same. And I'm curious to see where it'll go from here, because they did announce the 2025 lineup, and it's been, it's getting there. I mean, they do have a new Dragon book, which I'm kind of excited about.
The end of the year, like the latter half of the year, has a ton of things.
Yeah, it does have.
And the new starter set had its video, and it looks cool.
The new starter set.
It's full of stuff, as opposed to their previous strategy of
really
not putting in that much stuff and making sure it was dirt cheap so that they could get as many people as possible to buy it, which, to be clear, also good strategy. Okay, yeah. As someone who was at the company that had our own starter set at the time that was more expensive and had more stuff in it, you would often see people be like, okay, but why is this that much more than the D&D starter set when they would come up to it, right? So, like, I'm not saying that having a bare bones products in terms of what's in there and a low price is a bad idea, but I really think it's cool that they're making such a premium
I mean, I'm looking at it now. Look
at how much stuff is in there.
There's a lot in there, but I will tell you the real secret is here, I'll put a link in chat. Take a look at the cover. That is smart, because the cover is not too over the top, and yet it's a very safe and family friendly and kid friendly cover. It's very fun. It's not intimidating. It's not overwhelming, and I think that gets an A++. Like that is
it's a really good cover.
Excellent cover.
I saw someone who said that it looked really similar to like a classic Might and Magic 6 computer game cover with the dragon in almost exactly the same pose. And it just looks like a great cover.
Yeah. I mean, they also did little things like the wizards in blue, the fighters in yellow, the magic users in purple, the thief is in green. By the way, we do this too. We put our different iconics in different colors. I don't know if you know that, but like these are little things you should do. Like you want to actually color code, and I guarantee they probably then use that in the set. Is that each class has a different color code, which makes it easier for you to then see and understand what goes to what, who goes to what, which equipment goes to which person, because you color coded. You do things like that. Like, I think this is going to be and then they have cards for the ability. I mean, I didn't look at it. I mean, but it's $50. It comes with a lot in here. It looks replayable. It's very clean. It's very easy to use. Yeah, I think this is going to be like an absolute home run. Like, I think they really, and it
looks fantastic.
It really does.
I like it. The one question becomes, really, have they price pointed it to the point where they're not going to get the same effect where it was so cheap that everyone would buy it? It's always the question with these starter sets.
Yeah.
I think it looks like obviously we haven't seen what's in there. We don't know if the adventure is as good as Phandelver and any of the other details. But just from their preview, it looks like it's going to be great.
Yeah, by the way, it is Derek's like Heroes
of the Borderlands, as in keep on the.
Yes. It's an updated version.
Yes.
They said it was.
They literally said that that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think this is they're pretty smart. I mean, this was a good idea from them to do this. They obviously need a good starter set. And
of course, and they need a good one associated with 2024 because they're trying to bring in new people with 2024.
Yeah, and this is, a lot has been learned since then too. Obviously they know what they're doing. I think they're doing an excellent job with this. I forgot what I was going to say.
I don't know.
I know you blew it out of my mind.
I think that in terms of like the design team and the product structuring, that they know what they're doing, and they chose wisely in terms of making particular decisions of the overall direction to move. Like I was saying before, the changes they made to the player's handbook were almost exactly what I predicted, because that's just the smart way to do what they were trying to do.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. See, this is why we get so upset. It's because when they being WoTC, when they really try, and you can tell the right people made the right decisions, you can get something like this starter set, which looks great. You can get the new monster manual, which, by the way, I think the 2024 monster manual is absolutely fantastic. I think it is beyond gorgeous, extremely well done. I mean, it's an A+ book. I think it's really, really good. And they can do this. That's the thing. It's like and that's also what makes them scary, because it's like, wow, when they really put their mind to it and they really stop looking at trying to monetize everything and make everything, a money grab, they can put out the best content, period. Like, they just can put out the best. And when they want to, they can, and they have. And that's what makes it upsetting when they put out something.
I think the problem is that projects get too many masters.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And even it's possible to make a project that is very good even when you're trying to monetize it.
Yeah.
Right? But when they have too many masters, and when executives and marketing masters take control and force you to put too many things into it, that's when you can run into issues. We've talked about this before. When we were talking about the Vecna adventure, how some of the individual pieces of the adventure, you said, because you were looking through it, were fantastic. But the cohesiveness of the adventure as a whole was harmed possibly by too many masters and needing to do 5 or 6 different things that they wanted to do for the brand that were not all about how can we make the best adventure with Vecna.
Well, I'll tell you why, and I figured out what they're doing, because what's fascinating is that, and we could probably do a video on this in the future. The adventures have gone from, and this was brought up at Gamma. Like, this was actually talked about a fair amount at some of the talks I went to. Is that the adventures went from these adventure paths that you would play for years to smaller adventures that you'd play over a series of maybe about 3 to 7 sessions to just modular, tiny little adventures. And I think we watched in real time, I know, is that the Vecna was one of the casualties of, crap, how do we make this modular that people can drag and drop it into their games and tie it together? And that's why the connective tissue didn't work. It didn't work very well because their new adventure sets, like the new Dragon one, they said they're leaning into it. It's like, not only are each of these, I think it's 10 adventures, not only are these 10 separate adventures, but they each have their own art style, their own, like, they're completely separate.
Yeah,
they
not
look
trying
nothing
to tie
alike.
the 10 together.
Yeah, they're not even trying. And
well, I think they're trying to appeal to a group of people who don't have the same amount of time,
but no one does
that they would have had in the past.
They just don't.
And therefore, they want to get in, get out, and feel like they've completed something, done the story.
Yes,
and that they don't have to commit 300 hours to this. 300 for the adventure path, 30 for like the shorter adventure.
Some of the things that were being said is like, so the average number of sessions, I remember for like a group is something like 7, and that's for everyone. That includes the people who have hundreds and hundreds of. Now that makes sense because a lot of people will play once and never again, and then there's a couple that will play hundreds and hundreds of times. But there's a lot of people who just want to play for a few months and then be done with it, and the average length of sessions has gone down to something like 2 hours, which, I mean, I used to play all day, but then even the last couple of years, we were doing 4-hour sessions, which has now gone to 3-hour sessions.
4-hour sessions used to be the norm for a non-marathon game.
Right.
Because the problem with 2-hour sessions is very tricky. That unless you have very focused players who are on the ball, not on their phone, ready to go, aren't friends with each other that much that they want to catch up.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true.
You're going to lose an hour of that 2 hours at the beginning and the end with a half an hour to start and a half an hour to end, and then you'll only really have 1 hour to play.
Yeah,
that's the tricky thing. Whereas with
true.
4 hours, you still only lose a half hour on the beginning and end, and then you have 3 hours to play.
Yeah, so the way we do it is we have 3 hours, but 1 hour is us just BSing, and then 2 hours is just play. And there's no one's on the phones, no one's taking breaks, so it's hardcore playing. But that works well for ours. But I tell you, after 2 hours, I'm done. We're all done. We're like, yeah, even if we didn't even want to go on more. Like, that's as far as we can go before we run out of steam. And they are realizing that that's just the world we live in now, is that people want short and sweet, and I think 2 hours is about the max. And that's what these adventures are turning into. These adventures are becoming small. They're becoming standalone. They're becoming very modular. And because the number one question we get, not number one, but I get a lot of people asking, when are we doing another adventure? I actually am pretty excited about the new one we're doing.
Yeah, release the Kraken.
Yeah, the release the Kraken, because I think that will be the future. It's like, it's not so small that it's like a 4 hour. It's more like probably.
I think ours is probably going to take 3-4 hour sessions. Maybe.
Yeah, like 8 to 12 hours. So that way you can get it done in, how many sessions? Like whatever.
6 if they're 2 hours, right?
Approximately.
Or 3 if they're 4 hours, somewhere in that range.
Right.
It depends on how much you want to role play. If you steamroll through the role playing sections, you might be able to do it faster than that. So you might be able to do it in, like you were saying, in 8. So like 2 4-hour sessions or 4 2-hour sessions. But if you like to role play a lot, there's lots of opportunities for it. So it could take even longer.
Yeah, but
I'm assuming sort of average role play here when I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I think that's just just the way things are going. It's just that we're just like adventure paths. I love adventure paths. I think they're great, but I think the world is just going towards much smaller sessions.
Eric says that 2 to 3 hours is the new 4 to 6.
It's true. It definitely is. But think about, like, when you were a kid, what I do find fascinating, when I was a kid, I seemed to have nothing but time. But my kids, especially in this TikTok world of phones and the amount of things they're doing, they don't have any time. It's quite the opposite. They're always busy. And they're never bored. It's actually pretty rare they're bored. And we used to be just, I mean, you guys know this. I played Talisman after school every single day. Like, we played, like, I would go out to school, we'd play a game of Talisman, we would play D&D, we would play Nintendo, I'd play my Atari. Like, we had so much time. We would go to the arcade, we'd go to the mall. Like, I seem to have nothing but time to just goof off and watch movies and, you know, all this stuff. I mean, now I don't know who has time to do any of that. So yeah, Derek's saying how much free time he had a kid. I mean, I had endless free time, it seems like. My kids, they don't have free time. They're always running around. They go to sleep early because they're freaking tired. Because they're always doing something. So, and I think that's just the way the world is now. And that's why their D&D is becoming smart. And they're turning it into, I think it's a combination that they're getting smart, and that the new people that are getting hired are younger, so they're more with it. They're more into, they're more into like what people are interested in. And I was actually talking to Eric Mona about this a bit, and about like age versus, like the people that are playing now versus, let's say, it's almost like there's a couple generations. There's the old grognards. There was the almost your generation, Mark, like, the people who came about.
The young grognards.
The young grognard, in a will. But you guys were still kind of grog, because the game was kind of similar, but you didn't start with first edition. You started with like second or third, but you still were pretty. I started
with the brown box.
Well, not you, but a lot of people.
First edition, but it was still like AD&D, not like all the way at the beginning.
Right, but a lot of people did start in the last 20 years, I'd say. And that's
also a lot of people my age started with a newer edition than I started with. I happened to start at a young age.
But now there's a lot, and I mean a lot of people who have started, and I know because I talked to them quite a bit, they're like, oh yeah, I've been playing for 3 years. Or 4 or 5. 5's a lot, by the way. That's like old, because it just 4th edition really kind of killed D&D. In a lot of ways. It didn't bring a lot of new people in. 5th edition came out, and really, it was the beginning of Stranger Things and SRD in 2016 that it started to accelerate. And then you throw in Pandemic, and you throw in Baldur's Gate, and you throw in everything else, and you throw in Critical Role, and then right around. So really, a lot of new people has come in the last 5 years. That's where a big majority of people are coming in. And they have to really appeal to not only those people so they can keep them, but then they're going to start having kids in a few years. So they got to make sure that they're ahead of the ball. Now, the only reason I even know this stuff is because it's my job to know this stuff. Like, I have to stay on top of it, even though I'm old, but I have to stay on top of these trends so that I can make sure, as part of my job, to know what's coming and to anticipate what people are, want, so that we're not creating another adventure path that goes for 10 levels, which I think will do okay, but I don't think will do nearly as well as smaller adventures, which I think is going to. How old am I? I'm old enough. How about this way? I was a kid in the 80s. How about that? That's how you can figure it out. So I'm older than Saturday Night Live. How about that? I'm older than D&D. So,
there you go.
And I started in 77, so you can figure out from there.
You're older than D&D.
Yeah. But, that's actually one of the things I do like, is that I have to quote, stay young, because I have to stay on top of these trends. Although it is funny because Mark and I did see, we had a TikToker do an ad for us, And Mark and I looked at it. We're like, I think it's good. I didn't understand half the words in it.
Or no, there was one word that I just literally had never heard before in my life. So I said to Steven, this is probably good and up to date because it includes a word I've never heard before in my life. And I think it's going to reach audiences that are not just like you and me.
Right. So, because I do have younger people. I do have
some of the stuff. It was like it sounded like younger TikTok-y things, but I knew what they were. But there's one, it was just like, it was one of the many types of verbs where you put like a KT instead of an ED at the end of it, but it was just not one that I could tell what the original, because it wasn't just like wrecked where it's like you get wrecked, but it was like not even a word with an ED in it. And I was like, I do not know what this is, but it sure sounds good. Like it's something that other people would know that I do not know. I cannot remember what it is now, chat. I don't remember. It was obviously being used in a place where I could tell from context roughly what it was getting at.
Hello, fellow kids.
Yes, that's right, fellow children.
No, that's from the 30 Rock when Steve Buscemi is pretending to be like a teenager. He's like, "Hey, fellow kids!" He's like holding a skateboard. He's like in his 50s, and it's Steve Buscemi, so he looks like he's in his 70s. So. But anyhow, so see a lot. We missed 1 week, and so many things happened. You got the Beholder, you got D&D starter set, you have Sigil come out. I think there's some other things coming out. Let's see.
There's just a lot going on.
I know, but what do people actually think about 5th edition being forever?
So someone asked about it in chat. They were like, I've been watching this, and you've been talking about why it will be forever, but that's supposed to be good or bad. And I responded to them in chat and said, I mean, we're not making a value judgment on that. Steven's just explaining why it's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's probably some good things and some bad things about it, depending on your perspective and your point of view. If you love 5th edition and where it's going at, and you're worried that it was going to get clobbered over by something completely different and just not even remotely similar, then for you, that might be a really good thing. Whereas people who hate Vancian magic and we're like, well, I really wish that was going to get removed. To you, that might be a bad thing because it's probably not going to get removed, even if they make alternatives.
Well, I think this is what it is. I actually think it's going to be a good thing, and I'll tell you why. It's that now 5.5, or whatever you want to call it, is done. So they don't have to worry about, they're like, okay, we have a system, it's solid, we're probably not going to be updating this for another 10 years. So now they can spend their time on tweaking it and improving upon it. So I think it's good. I think I did see a conversation, their talk at Gamma. And, I'm kind of curious. I want to see what this new magic system is. They're coming out with a whole new player's handbook later in the year. Like, they're coming out with the new Artificer class. Like, they're actually...
new, in quotes, Artificer class,
yeah,
right?
But
it is the updated, it's the 2024 version of the old Artificer
Yeah, but
class.
They're actually adding a lot more to it, and it looks like they actually have a conscious plan to, rather than... Because their old plan was they just kept releasing new adventures constantly. I mean, they released very few source books. In 10 years, just a small handful. And they basically... They
didn't have a ton of adventures either. They
only released like 3 to 4 a year, and that's it. They released 6, I think it was 5 to 6 books a year, and half or most were adventures. And the others were just like either lore books or very rarely a source book. And that was it. So, with that in mind, it looks like they're going back a little to the roots, is that they are releasing less adventures and more source books and more core rules, which is good because it sort of becomes the bellwether for the rest of the industry, and they can see where everything's going, and that's why it's important for them to continuously release, even if it's one class a year. Like, they need to just keep moving it forward. They can't just, the problem with, I felt like with D&D is that they just felt like they just weren't releasing anything. So it was just the same game, and the game never moved forward, and that's why third-party stuff became so popular, because people get bored of the same thing, and new adventures ain't going to cut it. Especially, I think, with this crowd. I think new people want new things, especially younger people want new things. So, I think it's good. I think, look, it would have been interesting if we were stuck with 4th edition. I'll tell you that. Wow, that would have been different. Imagine this happened 20 years ago when we're like, oh, we're all stuck with 4th edition forever and ever.
It would not have been good for Hasbro and WoTC, though, because 4th edition was not nearly as popular as 5th.
Right. And then you have...
Imagine that. They got stuck on 4th. They never put out 5th.
Can you imagine?
So then Critical Role is like, well, we're doing this in Pathfinder, I guess. There's not a new D&D that's easier to switch to for streaming.
That was something else that was announced. Did you see Critical Role is doing a Pathfinder?
Well, no, it's not Critical Role. Just Matt Mercer and a bunch of other people are doing a Pathfinder
Geek and Sundry and Matt Mercer.
Geek and Sundry is doing a thing that has Matt Mercer. That's still a big deal.
That is a big deal. It's a big deal. And it's a short mini session. I think that's better, because I think a lot more people are going to watch it. I think that's a great thing. I'm excited. And it has
exciting.
Felicia Day. I love her.
I wanted to correct, because we are like a place people go to for news information,
right.
It wasn't Critical Role.
No, you're right.
It is very exciting.
You're right. It's not Critical.
They've got all almost all of the people who are in that I've heard of before, and keep in mind I've heard of like nobody ever.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Yeah.
But I've heard of these people who they have on there, except for I think one of them was like, I looked up and he was a comedian and was not in as many things.
Here it is. Matt Mercer, Felicia Day, play Pathfinder in charity stream. And it's just, it's Geek and Sundry. And it's going to be a charity stream. Let's see. It has Matt Mercer, Felicia Day, Deborah Ann Wall. I know her, actually. She's really good. She's from Daredevil and True Blood.
Yes.
Brandon Roth, everyone knows him. He's
him.
Superman. And Reggie Watts. Reggie Watts is
he's the one I didn't
Reggie
know.
Watts is incredible. He's actually probably the best one. Look him up. He's funny. He's a musician.
I looked him up. He said he was a comedian. So
well, he's a musician. He's actually he's on late night. I forgot which late night talk show. He's really funny. This is really good. Actually, this is an A+
cast. 100%. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great. We had a couple chats from Agile Monk who said, Steven is legendary on his knowledge of the industry. Been in and out of the industry for 40 years. Steven amazes me with his context and knowledge. Thank you, Steven and Mark. Missed you while you were away.
There we go. Oh, that's right. He was on The Late Show with James Corden. He was the band leader and announcer. Reggie Watts, by the way. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it looks amazing. So I think that's going to be cool.
Yeah, that it's going to be cool.
And especially since, like, if you had all of these people and they were playing D&D, I think that would also be good. But D&D, like, kind of doesn't need it because it's going to do great either way. But Pathfinder, I don't think has ever had that star-studded of a cast that was playing it in the past. No. So this is an example of something. It was probably expensive for them to set this up based on who they got, but it could be like a big moment for them if it gets viral and if it catches lightning in a bottle and if a lot of people watch it.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like they're looking at, so next week, it looks like I think we are going to be launching the Kickstarter because the page is almost done. Very long story short is the page wasn't getting done and the person I'm working with couldn't get it done, but now it's getting done.
He was like not feeling well and things like that.
I don't know. There was a lot going on. I won't get into it. But I will say I did get a sample of one of the I'm just putting it together, of one of the bonuses that we're giving out.
This project, by the way, has so many bonuses. I believe that you can wind up getting 3 bonus items if you do everything right. Like you do the VIP pre thing now, and then you back on the first aid, and you already backed the Year of Legends in the past. You can wind up getting, like, don't quote me on this, but I think 3 free.
Well, if you do everything,
if you
do now, you can get a free goblet. If you put down $1, you get $1, you get a free
$1 is
goblet.
the goblet. Then there's another thing for backing early.
Early, we're gonna have something very nice.
And there's a third thing if you already back Year of Legends, which may be impossible for you to do. You may need to invent a time machine to go back and back it.
If you back Year of Legends, you'll get a thank you. And
I'll tell you what, though.
I'm going to show the thank you.
If you invent a time machine and just give it to me,
here a time machine. You have
I will give you. I will find a way to
I'll trade
I'll give you my copy of whatever the incentive is.
I'll trade you everything I have for that time machine. Okay, you have everything I own. Ta-da! Look at that. That is. Can you see that?
Yeah. Okay.
Hold on.
Is that the one for Year of Legends, folks?
Yeah. So if you already backed the Year of Legends,
you get these funky dice.
You get these monster dice.
They're this funky legend monster dice. What are the faces? The ones?
The face? No, they're actually different. I don't know what the faces are. They're different for each one.
But I think are they on the one?
No, they're not. They're not. So
are they on the 6?
No, they're on the.
Wait, they're on different sides, so you don't know which side they are until you memorize them.
They're on the 5. Believe it or not,
they're on the 5.
No, but they're different for each one. Yeah, they're different for each one. I don't know why. These things are pretty.
So, these look fantastic.
They're
but I'm
really
from
thick.
From a usability
they're
standpoint, having them on the 5 is not my favorite.
No, I know, but here, listen to this. It's like, I mean, they're strong dice. Like I got these, I was like, holy crap, these dice ain't fooling around. They can like take an eye out with these things. Now they're only D6s, but like if you look at this guy. Ooh,
oh wait, is that one on the 3? The face?
Look at her. That one is on the 1, 2. That one's on the 5 as well.
Oh, that one's also the 5. I was thinking maybe there's a method to it where the number of like little spots in the face is equal to it, but I guess not.
I guess that's the one issue when you get things from overseas. When you have special dice,
I always think about that.
When you get things overseas, you don't always get the.
So the functionality is not ideal, but they were some of the coolest looking dice I've seen recently. If
you just use the same one. There we go. Oh, I like this guy. Come on, focus. Yeah,
it won't focus on it, but it has a funny looking face.
There we go. I get out of the frame. There we go.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
He's like, and they're actually in like dice. They're embedded. Like this isn't not a simple one, just a skull. Skull is simple. And then we also have the little dragon egg. That's what this one is.
I like the dragon egg. Is that one on the 1?
That is none of them are on the 1.
Oh, interesting.
Except nope, not on the 1. Not a single one is on the 1. You see, there's the 1.
There's the 1.
Okay. No, this one is
maybe that one would be because it's like a single 1 circle.
No, it's so weird. I have no idea.
It's
maybe
weird
it's
that they do it there, but it looks great.
Is it Garfield? Anyway. No, it's not a Garfield.
I will for dice that look that cool. I will learn which one is the one with the weird side.
I got news for you, Mark. Because look, whoops! Oh crap!
What?
I just spelled them.
What did you do?
Look, I got a whole bunch of them, so I can give you some.
Excellent.
I got a whole bunch.
I managed to get my special edition classic creatures at Gamma because Steven brought some to show people, and I took them. So now I finally have. And my fairy dragon book.
So the point of this is, by the way, so like I try to come up with things like, look, are you going to use this all the time? No. Do they look good as a display item? Yeah, they look cool as display, but you can use them once in a while. Like that's the whole point. It's like
as long as you remember which one the monster side is, they work great. It sounds like they're very like sturdy, solid dice.
Incredibly sturdy. They're actually fairly heavy, but the point is that one time
sometimes
when you need that one roll
to a die though, because it makes it feel a little bit more ominous when you roll the heavy die.
Yeah, they're really good. So
we had a couple comments. Lot unfinished projects wonders if the 5.5 D&D 2024 will start to get a 3.5 bloat. And Mark T says RFC always has the best products. Thank you. So here's my answer to that, which is I don't think that just by being a 0.5 that it's guaranteed to have the same future as 3.5 because there were very different things going on there. But as Steven pointed out, if their new strategy is to put out more source books more quickly, then that is more reminiscent of the 3.5 strategy than the 2014 strategy. So it's certainly possible. And of course, the definition of bloat changes. One person's bloat is another person's. I love that book. Like, but the point in 3.5 when some people said bloat was coming out also included books like the Tome of Magic with the Binder class that I thought was great, or the Book of Nine Swords, which was incredibly cool. It had a few ridiculously unbalanced and broken things in it that were not probably properly play tested. But if you ignored those and like filed some of that stuff off, like the idea for the system was amazing. And that was near the end of 3.5. So one person's bloat is another person's expansion and exciting options, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So I do have to go because I got to make a call.
Yeah, no worries.
But so I figured this was sort of a catch-up episode. Mark's like, I don't know how long we could talk about this. I was like, dude, I think we could talk about anything forever. But
well, I didn't know that we had like 2 to 3 other mini topics.
Well, we also had many other topics, but it is interesting because in a weird way, it's also a little freeing knowing like, okay, they're stuck with 5 for kind of forever. So like it looks like they are doing that. They're leaning into it. It's like, okay, if you're going to have 5, just lean into it and just keep expanding on it and making better and better, which I feel like in the last couple of years, they've been focusing on. First, it was releasing really good adventures because a lot of their adventures in the first couple of years were excellent. There was a lot of issues with 5e, but the adventures were always got really good reviews and people liked it.
Not all of them did.
Not all of them, but
I saw mixed reviews even in the early, and some of the early adventures they didn't even do. They gave to other people to do.
Right, but my point is like if you compare the average adventures, like the last couple, like just. They're not even close to even some of the worst adventures. I think aren't even close. But the point is that they've been so focused on all these other things, like the VTT and D&D Beyond and the new edition and the OGL and fighting internal fights and tripling the size of their staff. Like they had so many other things going on that the game wasn't part of their central tasks. Like they were just doing everything except making a good game. They were so busy at doing everything else. And this is not uncommon. This happens all the time. It's that businesses get so big is that the thing that made them so popular, they no longer do because they're just so busy running the business. And now I think they can finally get back to actually running the game and making D&D better, which, I'm totally for. I actually hope it really gets good. I mean, the books they announced this year, they're not a lot, but I kind of like them. I mean, they Dragon
seem interesting. I'm willing to see what's going to be in them, and I think that the starter box looks great.
Yeah, the starter box looks good.
I'm excited to see what's going to happen.
Well, the other one that looks good is the Player's Handbook in Forgotten Realms, because they're going to have all the. Well, I have a feeling a couple of Baldur's Gate 3 characters are going to be showing up in that one. Just a few. So,
I mean, probably, yeah.
Oh, it's going to happen. I guarantee it.
I mean, because that's the setting that they're in, right?
That's the setting they're in, and also the timing is perfect because I know how long it takes for them to make these books, and it's coming out approximately when Baldur's Gate 3 hit and became monstrous, and they were able to say, okay, let's do this, and it's coming out about 2.5 years after Baldur's Gate 3 released. So that's about right. That's the time you need to develop these books. So
you can use it's usually not
well for D&D.
Yeah, it's usually not quite that long, but
oh no, it is for D&D. I know how long it is,
but it's almost that long.
Well, it can be.
Right? They didn't have to press the start button instantaneously
no.
when Baldur's Gate came out, right? But it is close enough that it's obviously an after.
Well, I guarantee the book's done. I mean, all those books are done.
Obviously.
Yeah,
obviously.
Those books are all done.
I know what the steps are. I've done a video about all the steps that you have to do in publishing a book, and there's over a dozen lengthy steps. So the book is way done by now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, hopefully next week the Kickstarter will be live and there's going to be a whole bunch of things. I did announce in today's email that there is going to be a plushie. I don't have it here because
the
I'm
Psycho Pomp Wizard plushie.
Yeah, I'm actually having the vest reworked. So actually that version you see is only a prototype. So the new one will be, the coat comes off, by the way, so you can take the coat off. The hood does not come off, and I don't think the vest comes off. And that's on purpose because the hood is actually just the way it works. You can't really put it on and off easily unless you like Velcro it, and it became a mess. So I just kept the hood on. The vest, we're looking at different options of the vest because right now it's just cloth, but I want to put buttons down it so it looks more like a vest. The bird itself is pretty much done, and the cloak is done. The other thing we're doing is I'm going to add eye holes in the hood. So right now it's just pictures of eyes on the hood, but I'm actually going to make holes in it, and then I'm going to print the eyes on the bird itself so it's more realistic. So
I think that makes more sense. Like the mask was the one part when I looked at it and it didn't have like the same aesthetic that I think it could have, but if it has the holes and you can see the eyes on the bird, I think that would help.
I think that adds a lot, and it's a balance between doing too much and too little because these are printed, and they never look as good in pictures. That's the thing. It's like they always look in pictures, but when you hold them, they're always better.
The Eldamon plushies are so good.
Those look okay in pictures, but like you see them in person, you're like, holy crap, these things are amazing. The other thing is the feet are big on purpose, like so it can stand up. So we purposely made the feet like, you're like, oh, birds don't have, trust me. If we made the feet like a real bird's feet, this thing would have fallen over. So we had to make sure I made it very sturdy, because that's actually a problem, is that when you make plushies, I'll give you an example. Like when you have like the Eldamon, like the Squirrel Ash, is that, well, here you give them like a big bottom, and then you have these very sturdy flat feet, and then the tail actually helps. So you can't really see, but he can stand up.
Yeah, so I know from my Squirrel Ash.
Right. So you kind of want that. So the feet, I made them pretty big. And they might be a little too big, but I think it's okay. It's to make sure that it can stand up, and then it leans on its tail. So you can just put it down and it stands up nice and strong. So, look at that. Wow. You know you do a good plushie, but even Derek Melenda, Mr. I hate everything cute and fluffy and silly,
says S-tier plushies, you can take my Squirrel Ash from my cold dead hands.
Well, it's the same company. It's the same people. Same designers.
That's what Derek said.
I'm working with to make the
Although honestly,
plushie.
if you just kept holding a Squirrel Ash in your hand for long enough, it would be like your warm dead hands eventually.
That's right. It's warm dead hands. So I do want to see, and often what will happen is I'll get it and then we'll prototype it a few more times because they have to send it to me. So I'll see how it looks, because like another example was like when I did Tarapoof.
Yeah,
is that
Tarapoof.
the original Tarapoof doesn't have this in his ears, and he had something different. I forgot what it was, but he's much better. Like he would go through like 2 or 3 rounds. So this is literally round 1 of the
Psychopomp Wizard.
Yeah,
and
Psychopomp
I thought
Wizard.
The Psychopomp Wizard looked pretty good in round 1, but that it had room for improvement on the face with the things. Same thing that you already said.
So the
But
Shadow
it
Dark
already looks cool. I like that it's got a wizard hat and
the wizard hat. I'm
robe.
actually changing the color of the wizard hat. I'm making it a deeper red. I actually don't really like the pink. The other thing is they have to make it. So it's like, okay,
Right.
It's like I literally give them, like feedback, and then they make it. And they sew it and put it together. So it takes a little while. It's not a very fast process. It takes a bit of time. So
Phoenix Guard is wondering if we have a specific date for the Shadow Dark Kickstarter.
no, it's probably May. So I don't have a date yet. So sometime in May.
That makes sense because we've got another Kickstarter that's probably starting next Tuesday and going to go into early April.
Right.
So then in May would probably be the Shadow Dark one.
Well, the tariffs, I won't get into that, but yeah, I mean, just everything's going to go up 20%. There's nothing we can do about it. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's welcome to the new world order. So it's, everything's going to go up. I mean, I have to raise things a little bit, but I can do what I can do, but everything goes up because now I have to pay 20%. I got my first bill the other day and it was not great. So nothing I can do. Anyhow, I guess next week we will talk about, I don't know what we're going to talk about. We might have surprise guests. We might have a big surprise guest.
Ooh, a big surprise guest.
Yeah.
Is it one of those surprise guests you were talking to recently?
No, it was the one that you...
It's a completely different one.
It's a completely different surprise guest that I've been talking to offline, but they're very busy, so we'll see if they want to join. So,
well, that'll be cool. We'll find out. Find out, folks. I'll find out who it is.
But let me go because I got to make a phone call. So.
Yeah, Steven's got to go. So everyone take care. And until next time, if you want to battle the zoo, I guess you have to roll for combat.
All right.
No. There's nothing else to roleplay as in my tabletop games. I've been everything imaginable. A dwarf, a halfling, an elf, a sexy elf.
Hey, Jack.
What?
Jack.
What is it, Vampire Cop?
I know you're looking to put weird little monsters into your game. Well, look no further. Battlezoo Ancestries Leaving Legends has 14 unique ancestries for your Pathfinder 2E or D&D 5th edition games.
Radical!
Like Swarmblood, a creature made of hundreds of other little creatures. Gargoyles, where you can disguise as an ordinary statue, but also become a warrior of the night.
Look at them all. Angels, devils, sphinxes, evil eyes. I love them and I will die for them.
And if you really want to go full sicko mode, you can be a fusion and play as an ancestry that combines multiple characters in one, like a chimera, two-headed giant, or even a hydra. You could either share this character with other players or control it all by yourself.
I could have the power of both a low-level internet personality
and a low-budget, sexy horror action movie? Visit legends.rollforcombat.com
to get Battlezoo Ancestries Living Legends, which includes in-depth information about each creature's culture, society, and history. You also get hundreds of digital tokens and illustrations that work with any VTT. Go get your hands on all these little freaks today.
Hey, can I join you? Sure, we can be a chimera now.
No!